So have you ever wondered why every November, a bunch of random strangers just get together and they run around the country for no apparent reason? Yes, I'm talking about the marathon. Historically speaking, the marathon is supposed to be far more than just a race. Around 500 BC, there was this huge war between the Greeks and the Persians. But this war was not happening on Greek land. So the Greek army general was so hyped about eventually winning the war that he couldn't wait to return to his homeland and to announce his victory. Instead, he decided to send a messenger. This poor guy had to run 42 kilometers in order to get to Athens. And when he got there, the only thing he could say was marathon, which means victory. Unfortunately, he couldn't even continue the rest of his sentence because he fainted. The moral of the story is not the fact that we should not run 42 kilometers without drinking water. The marathon helps us see that even the most primitive version of a text message, which is sending a literal human being, is still not enough in order to communicate a decent message. We have always suffered from a gap in our communication. Fake news is not a new kind of plague, and this was mostly evident around the 2nd century BC. So what happened is that a group of Greek city-states were allied together against a very strong foreign enemy. But they couldn't communicate, because every time they tried to send a messenger, the guy was either getting tortured or he was kidnapped. So they decided to come together and create a messaging system that was crypto and unique to them and them alone. So what they did is that these men gathered and they noticed that the only thing that they actually have in common is the fact that they're all military commanders. It's their official rank. So here's an interesting piece of information. Around the 1st and 2nd century BC, anywhere around southeastern Europe, when a person became a military commander, he was given a token of appreciation. In case of ancient Greece, this token was sort of a primitive version of a ship in a glass bottle. The symbolism is quite basic. The ship represents expansion. The fact that it's a bottle means that it's a container of water, which is the symbol of life in the ancient world. And the fact that it's glass means that it's fragile, like the life of a commander on a battlefield. So they decided to use this token of appreciation in order to come up with a messaging system that was simple and accessible. What's the most accessible thing on a battlefield? Clothing. So they took pieces of clothing, they cut it as strips, and they used it in order to wrap it around the bottle. But instead of writing horizontally, which you would do when you're writing a letter, they decided to write vertically. That way, when the strip was removed from the bottle, the sequence of letters would make no sense at all. Then, the messenger could just carry this piece of clothing from one commander to another without getting caught, kidnapped, or tortured. This way, they very simply came up with a messaging system that was efficient and it was secret. Now, let's leave ancient Greece and come back to reality. With the beginning of the 21st century and the emergence of online shopping and ATMs, personal information became very easily accessible. It was hackable in a modern sense. So we needed someone to jump into the picture and save the day. In January 2009, Bitcoin, which is known as the very first version of cryptocurrency, launched its very first campaign with the promise to protect personal information. So this took the people by surprise. It was a financial transaction system, but it was crypto, anonymous, and it was online. People invested their entire life savings on it, while another group of them were petrified. They vilified Bitcoin. Now we're in 2019, and newspaper headlines are still flooded with different interpretations of this creepy internet money. But why are we scared of something that's modern when it's supposed to help the way we live? So, in a simpler sense, let's say you're a huge Game of Thrones fan, and you want to buy that pillow that has Jon Snow's face on it. But you want to take a risk. You're not encouraged to do so in Lebanon, but you want to go for it. You want to pay for it using cryptocurrency. What happens next? What's really going on? You're basically given a public key and a private key. The private key is the modern version of your bottle. It's that which you use to initiate the transaction. While the public key, in case of cryptocurrency, is the World Wide Web. Now, I know what you're thinking. The internet is not a reliable medium for financial transactions. But don't forget, you have your messenger. In a modern sense, the messenger is called a miner. This is basically a person who does not know you and does not know the destination of your transaction. They are just a human being sitting behind a computer, gaining access to a public ledger that shows them that the transaction is being made from point A to point B. It's their duty to make sure that this money is being transferred efficiently and quickly. And in return, the Bitcoin system, or any kind of cryptocurrency system, pays them back based on how fast they can work. So these people are running, but instead of running with their feet, they're running a software. So let's take a step back. What's going on? In case of ancient Greece, we were dealing with 4 to 5 lines of information. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, we're dealing with something that's based on 2 to the power 256 computational algorithms, meaning it's completely impossible to look into it without having the proper key. So why am I telling you all this? Is it because I'm a huge history geek and I want to prove that history is awesome? Because it is. But that's a completely different story. The message that I'm trying to pass across is the fact that we shouldn't be scared of anything that's new, because as cliche as it may sound, there's nothing new under the sun. Just take a look at cryptocurrency. It's the love child of history and technology. 250 decades after some Greek men accidentally created something, we are now using it to pay for a Jon Snow pillow. And it's definitely worth it. My message is simple. You don't need to wrap it around some fancy bottle in order to understand it. Cryptocurrency is just an extended metaphor. It is proof that we don't just recycle bottles and cans, but we also recycle thoughts and ideas. We are creatures of habit and ritual. We don't like change, but we strive for reform. And cryptocurrency is reform at its finest. It's not something scary or fancy. It's just the repetition of history. Thank you.